Okay, so the floor is yours, I guess speaker. Take it away.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rubabat Oseni. I work with Ghana National Gas Company in the commercial department, and I am an assistant manager in charge of gas scheduling and contracts management. And then on the side as well, I am the section chair for diversity and inclusion for SPE Ghana section. So I'm happy to be here to give this webinar to the Uganda section, which happens to be the new baby on block. I hope this presentation will serve justice to those who are listening and watching from Uganda and elsewhere in Africa. But I'd like to understand something. How do you want this webinar to go? Should it be an open discussion, or I should just go through my presentation quickly and then we can have an open discussion? How would you like it?
I think the latter is better.
The open discussion?
After the presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. I'm just trying to connect via Facebook as well, and just so that some people can actually get the opportunity to follow via Facebook. Okay, so 1 second, please. Okay, so without wasting much time, today's topic is about embracing diversity, pioneering an inclusion future for the energy industry in Africa. So I'm going to start my presentation with the phrase, how diverse is Africa's energy? You and I know very well that Africa is quite diverse, and Africa is blessed with so much natural resources. When we talk about fossil fuels, the continent is actually rich in fossil fuels, including oil and gas in Africa. Major oil producers like Nigeria, Angola are well established in the oil and gas industries. And now we have the newbies in the energy industry now. Okay. So the likes of Uganda, Mozambique, and Tanzania actually emerging players in this oil and gas sector in Africa. And this just tells you that everything we do in this world evolves around oil and gas. You can't actually do anything without oil and gas on the continent. So therefore, Africa is actually blessed to have this diverse energy sources in Africa. Also, I'm going to move to what we call hydropower. As you know, Africa has substantial hydropower potential with significant projects in countries like Ghana. We have a dam called Akosombo Dam. Akosombo Dam in Ghana was built by Ghana's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of the Republic of Ghana. He built Akosombo Dam, and that dam serves as a source for our power generation. And this was built in the 50s thereabouts. And that's to tell you that a country like Africa, a country like Ghana, is even thinking about transitioning way back in the 1950s, which simply means that we're actually working towards a cleaner energy those days. A country that actually uses hydropower to generate energy is Ethiopia. If you've heard about the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, it's actually a source of power for the country, Ethiopia. Same goes to Congo. You and I know very well, Congo is one of the richest countries in Africa in terms of natural resources, the forest cover and the likes. Is actually a blessed country that can actually feed Africa and elsewhere. Also, when you talk about energy access, there is a significant push to actually improve energy access across Africa with initiatives like rural electrification and trying to get people who are actually off the grid onto the grid. So you have rural places where they do not have electricity. And we still have places in Africa right now that do not have electricity access. And you know what that means? It means that they have to find ways and means to provide their own energy source to be able to do what they have to do on a daily basis. Now, when we talk about bioenergy, gone are the days where our mothers used to go to the farm. And I can tell you, even though we're in 2024, our mother still goes to the farm. And then when they're done farming, they come home with firewood to make charcoal, and they come with firewood to cook for us. These are things we have been doing since time immemorial, and we are still doing this even in 2024. You go to certain places, charcoal is the main source of cooking. Some places people use charcoal as a main source to even power their house and to do other things. Some people use charcoal for ironing and the likes. But what are we doing as Africans to be able to move from those environmental things to more sustainable areas where we can actually move away from exploring, the old-fashioned things of burning firewoods and using charcoal, and then find other new technologies that will actually serve the same purpose, because the continent is actually blessed with all of these resources. So why are we saying that the continent should not explore its resources to develop its people? And when we hear about energy poverty, Africa as a continent is actually one of the continents with a vast number of people below the poverty level. And it's also actually been proven that the number of young people will rise by 2030. So if the category of younger people will come from the continent of Africa. So what are we doing in trying to improve the lives of people in Africa? Also, the major thing affecting Africa as a continent is actually infrastructure and investment. Like you and I know that this continent of ours is actually blessed, but what we don't have is actually infrastructure. I'll give you a clear example. Like I work in a company called Ghana National Gas Company, which happens to be a midstream company. But you know what happened when the IOCs, which are the international oil companies, came to Ghana? What they were doing was for them to explore the crude oil and take it out. That was what they wanted to do initially. But it took wisdom. It took people who had the country at heart to say, you know what, instead of you flaring this natural gas, let's put this gas into use. And that's what we have done in Ghana. So we're able to secure some loan, which is actually an investment from the CBD, which is China Development Bank, for us to be able to build the first ever gas processing plants in the country. And now let me tell you the irony of this gas processing plant. This gas processing plant was designed to process 150 million scf of gas. And we use this same gas to actually power electricity. We use it for energy use in Ghana. And not just only that, after processing the natural gas, we have byproducts from this raw gas we actually process. So we get our LPG and we get condensate. It is prudent to know that Ghana Gas actually produces 50% of the LPG required in the country. And the remainder of the 50% is what we import. And that's to let you know that just because of that singular act of having an infrastructure in Ghana has been able to open a lot of opportunities for people like me to have a job in the oil and gas industry, for people to be able to buy LPG from the market. And now this is priced according to the world price. We use the Platts to actually price our LPG. So it even tells you that for the social economic benefit of the country, we're actually playing a key role in terms of corporate social responsibilities. We are playing our role in terms of job creation. We are doing that. In terms of employment, we are doing that. When this gas processing plant was built, it was built by the Chinese, and most of the people who were working here were actually Chinese. It took us 3 years for us to be able to domesticate the people working on the plant. After 3 years, what we did was to send the Chinese packing, and we are able to operate these gas processing plants by 100% Ghanaian engineers. This is the first time this is happening, and I think it's something other African countries should look into. When you bring in these foreigners in and you've borrowed money from them, you need to actually have developed capacity for your people to be able to train and learn from these expatriates who have brought in their money using our own resources. Because look, it's a chicken and egg situation. There has to be an opportunity for them to be able to explore and then also get their own revenue back, as well as the company benefiting from this. So now we have, when I talk about diversity and then pioneering the African continent, there is something called glass ceiling in oil and gas. What is glass ceiling in oil and gas? This is where diversity comes in. Diversity and inclusion in oil and gas, this is where it comes in, the glass. What is called the glass ceiling in oil and gas? The glass ceiling is actually an invisible barrier that prevents women from reaching top positions in their careers. And it is not a formal rule, but a rather lack of access opportunities due to societal biases and discrimination practices. And sometimes we as women may be overlooked for certain things like promotion or passed over for training, or even faces biases in performance review. So you keep hearing things like, oh, she's a woman, she can't do it. Oh, don't worry about them. Oh, she's a woman. And you and I know that as a woman, we are the ones, we have our biological clock. And I'm going to be frank to people, because sometimes these biases against women, some people don't know. Sometimes it's unconscious. So what we are doing as champions of diversity and inclusion is actually create an awareness for people to actually understand the biases women have faced in oil and gas industry. I tell you not, the oil and gas industry still lacks women in the industry. Oil and gas industry is still a vibrant male-dominated industry on the continent and even elsewhere in the world. In Africa, it is even worse. Countries like Nigeria have been able to bridge the gap between the male and female counterparts in oil and gas industry. I can tell, for instance, in Nigeria, for instance, because they have been in oil and gas industry since the 1950s, now we're beginning to see female engineers, you're beginning to see female MDs, you're beginning to see female CEOs, you're beginning to see female country directors in Nigeria. And in Ghana, I can tell you that we now have a female country manager for Schlumberger. We now have 2 deputy CEO for Tullow Oil Ghana, who happens to be women. And then also Pecan Energy, we also have a woman as a CEO of that company. Same as WACO, who happens to have its first ever female MD. So we're beginning to see women coming in. And I keep telling people, let's try and encourage our girl child to do STEM. Those days, for instance, for me, I like maths, but I always have this fear that math is hard. I remember I really wanted to do civil engineering, and you keep hearing gestures like, oh, engineering is for men, you're a woman, don't do that. Some of these comments, we need to stop as a people, as Africans, discouraging our fellow women, our fellow sisters, our fellow wives, girlfriends, what have you, to say, oh, leave the hard job for the men. No, there is nothing like hardship. We were created in God's, what's a biblical word? We're created in God's own image. Simply means that we have equal brain. A man and a woman is put into a class, and a man and a woman is being taught mathematics. A man and a woman is being taught physics, chemistry. Why then do we have people saying, oh, physics is for men, chemistry is for men? Oh, because you're a woman, go and do home economics. Because you're a woman, let's push you back to the kitchen. We need to find ways and say, no, let's encourage the younger ones, even be it the men. Oh, you can do the maths, you can do the physics, you can do the chemistry. And you know what the saying says? There's this adage that says that when you train a woman, you actually train a society. So let's try as much as possible to encourage women to actually go into STEM programs for them to have that confidence. And then we'll be able to bridge the gap in this male-dominated industry. It is a male-dominated industry. Nobody needs to tell you that, no, trying to bridge the gap. And we're not saying that we want to be equal with them. All what we are asking for is to give us the same opportunity that is given to our male counterparts. We have a female engineer who goes on the rig, and they tell her, oh, you're a woman, you can't go to the rig, come and sit down in the office. No, what a woman is simply asking, give me the same opportunity. Let me be in the cover role. Let me to the rig. I have the expertise. I've been trained to do this. Don't push me back. So these are the biases we are trying to create awareness for the male counterparts to waive. Because the thing is, even we create the men, we give birth to the men, and it's the same men who are saying that, oh, don't come do this job. No, we are simply begging. We are simply appealing to our male folks that please give the girl child an opportunity to be able to work in this oil and gas industry, or even any of the male-dominated industry. We don't want it to be strictly male. We want women to be given equal opportunity in that. And then it is very interesting to know that as a woman, in a month, because of our biological clock, we have our hormones flying. People don't talk about this, but it is important that I bring this to the attention of everybody who is listening and watching me, that in a 30-day window, if I start to calculate our biological clock, we have 1 week before your menstruation or your monthly, your period starts. And that 5 days in a month, that's when you start having all this, you start having these hormonal changes. You have hormones flashing here and there. And then probably the first day you're angry, the second day you're feeling cranky, the third day you don't want to talk to anybody, the fourth day you're acting bitchy and you're like acting like a witch. It is very normal with every woman in this world. Every woman born of a woman, this will happen. Then the next 5 days, this same woman, after having all those hormonal changes with all the stinky attitude you can ever think of, will now have to now think of stomach cramps. Oh, she's having cramps, she's bleeding, and all those biological things that goes on. And then that's 10 days. So you can actually see in a 30-day, we have 10 days, which is already gone with different attitude, which is of no fault of ours. It's just the way we were designed and created by God Almighty for us to have all those biological flashes. And then the remaining 20 days, you have 5 days where you have to ovulate and you start having some kind of body reactions and all that. So basically, in a month, which is 30 days, a woman actually has 15 or 17 days of same days. The remaining 13 or 15, if you want to divide 15-50, we're actually going through a lot, through hormonal flashes. But we are women, we have to act as women as well. But we are saying that don't let this, even our biological clock, be a barrier for us to excel in our areas of work. Also, how do we shatter this glass? That is, how do we break the glass ceiling? We need to establish programs that actually connect women with experienced mentors who can actually support, guide, and advocate for career development. In some institutions, we have what we call the he-she advocacy, whereby you have the male who are actually advocating for the female professional and say, oh, let's support the women. And we need to be able to find those people to be able to guide, support, and advocate for our career development. Also, we need to foster a culture that values diversity and actively work towards inclusion by creating a hiring practices. I know in certain oil and gas companies, they try their best to give women more opportunities. So if there's a slot for, say, a mechanical engineering, they will actually give preference to women because they're trying to bridge the gap between male and female. And then also we need to, as people, we need to implement training programs that actually educate employees about these unconscious bias. Because sometimes they're like, oh, she's a woman, just leave her in the office. Don't worry, you go to the field. Meanwhile, the female actually wants to go to the field. But because she's a woman, somebody just thinks, oh, don't worry her, just leave her, just leave her in the office. And these are unconscious bias that certain people, certain leaders, certain bosses do not even know that they're actually doing, and it affects us. So what do we have to do? We need to find a way of addressing this by speaking about this, by getting the support, and by getting the advocacy we want. So basically, for you to be able to break the glass ceiling in oil and gas industry, one, you need to have mentorship and sponsorship. You need to promote diversity and inclusion, and of course, create awareness for bias training in the oil and gas industry, or whatever industry you find yourself. Now, what are the barriers to diversity and inclusion? I've been able to pinpoint 3 things, which is 1, the work-life balance initiatives, the transparency and accountability, and assess your progress on a regular basis. Now, when I say work-life balance initiative, what do I mean by that? What it simply means that we need to offer programs that actually help employees manage their work-life balance, particularly aimed at supporting women who often face burdens outside of work. Now we are having the younger generation by age 21, 22, they're done with their school, they did their national service, if they're lucky enough, or they start having their families, and then they have to come back to work. Those days, we used to have about 12 weeks or even 10 weeks of maternity leave. But now, through the affirmative action in Ghana, we actually have 16 weeks of maternity leave, paid maternity leave for women. And now, in certain companies, the male actually have 15 days, 15 working days of paternity leave. This is something that wasn't there before. So such programs, such advocacy is actually helping women leave work, go do their biological obligations as created by God Almighty, and then they want to be able to come back to the work that they left to do their obligation. So we are saying that we need to offer programs that actually helps people in these areas. And then secondly, we have what we call the we need to implement transparent and fair promotion policies. Let's set our clear performance expectation on women and let's hold women accountable. The fact that we are advocating for women to be in oil and gas industry, we need to hold these women accountable for the opportunity that we are giving them. So what we're trying to say is that if an opportunity is given to you as a woman, please make use of that opportunity and set a good example. And then also, let's collect data on diversity and inclusion and analyze these data for us to have an effective implementation to address areas that needs improvement. If a woman is given an opportunity, please do not mess it up. We are saying that hold that opportunity at high, make sure you deliver and you bring out your best so that the next female, the next woman, the next girl child will also have that same opportunity that is being given to you as a woman through diversity and inclusion awareness, because now the awareness is there. And now we need to work with the men to be able to do this. There is something called the Boys Club. Every organization have what we call the Boys Club. As a woman, do not be afraid to fail. Do not be afraid of knocking on people's door, especially the male counterparts who are very smart, and ask them, please teach me, please show me. Do not be afraid. Some will teach you, some will open their door gladly, and if they open their door, please learn. If they don't open the door, go to the next door, knock on their door, join the Boys Club, find ways where you can actually join this Boys Club and use that opportunity of joining this Boys Club to even bring their attention to the biases we women face in oil and gas industry. So we are saying that don't be afraid, knock on those doors, say, hey, I want to join the Boys Club. It's important we do this. Don't say, oh, they are men, I don't want to join them. We have to join this Boys Club because in their minds, they don't know. When somebody doesn't know, it's no fault of theirs. And then sometimes you keep hearing that what you don't know doesn't kill you. So for the men who are out there who don't know that certain women are facing biases in areas of their work, do not simply know, and they simply don't care. So we are saying that please don't be afraid. Go there, knock on their doors, and ask for the help. And I'm sure because we have the men who are actually advocating for women to be seen, to be heard, to achieve their goal, they are there and they are willing to help you. So please don't be afraid. Knock on those doors, ask for help, and make sure when given an opportunity, use the opportunity very well and judiciously. Now, what can we do as a woman? What we need to do is to what? Develop self-awareness. Let's try and notice, recognize our own potential biases and work actively to mitigate those stereotypes, which we believe are harmful to us. So for instance, when I started working in the oil and gas industry, I like numbers. And then I could go to the control room and they would tell me, oh, yeah, woman, you can't do this, it's for men. Oh, you didn't do mechanical, so you can't do this job. And I'm like, no, what's so hard in doing this? I can do it. And trust me, you know what? I don't sit even taking the numbers. I sit and they bring me the numbers and then they report those numbers to me. It's because I put my mind towards it. I've created an awareness to see where the biases are. They were strictly biased towards me because I'm a woman, and they didn't give me that opportunity. So what did I do? I had to work on myself to be able to change that stereotypes. So now I go to meetings full of men. Sometimes I feel intimidated at the beginning. Trust me, I was intimidated. But after a while, I was able to understand how the system works. I was able to go to the men and say, look, I'm doing this job because you are my backbone. I can't do this job without you. I am the face and you are my backbone. Once I was able to explain to them, and I was able to explain the rationale behind me calling them on the phone, asking for data. Oh, can you give me this data? They'll be like, oh, Ruba is calling. Oh, Ruba, dear, she has pressure. Pressure in Ghana simply means you're putting pressure on somebody, like always calling you on their neck. I was always put, so once they see my phone number, they're like, oh, Ruba is calling again. And I know sometimes they roll their eyes, they do all kinds of gesture. But you know what? I was able to build relationship. What I did is every time I have an opportunity to be with the male engineers, I try to explain the role I play. I try to let them understand why I need those information. I need those information for them, for me to be able to deliver their work, for their work to be seen. And after I was able to explain to them why I need those information, now they're all my friends. Once they see my phone calling, they're like, Ruba. Now they're giving me funds. They're healing me because what? I was able to knock on their door. And I said, no, I need to learn this. I need to understand and know this. Now I'm free with all of them because I was able to build relationship. If I go for meetings with my counterparts, you know what I do? I'm like, why should I sit with my you from Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day? When you go for meetings, you go for programs, please try and find ways to mingle, associate with people from different companies. That will give you an idea of what people also do in their various companies, the roles they play there. So it's not as if you go to a meeting and I'm just stuck with Ghana gas people. No, if I go to a stakeholder meeting, trust me, I don't even talk to my colleagues. I'm talking with my counterpart from GMPC, from Talo, from Cosmos, from Ministry of Energy and the likes, because I know that my Ghana gas people, my colleagues, I see them in the office. And I know that if I just move like 2 blocks away, I'll be in their office. So why should I even sit with them at meetings? So when you go out for important function, when you go to conferences, try and mingle, try and find people who are also in leadership roles who can also help you to develop strong network. I went for a program in Lagos, Nigeria, which is the annual NIUS program. And the SP International said something. It said, your CV, your certificate will get you your first job. However, your network will give you a higher paid job. So it's important to develop this network for us able to excel in our areas. And then also advocate for yourself. Ask for opportunities, knock on those doors. Negotiate salaries. Do not be afraid and say, hey, will they give me this money? Speak. The Bible says, ask and it shall be given. Knock and the door shall be open. If you don't ask, and you try to carve yourself and say, oh, I'm a woman, I seem to like money. Everyone loves money. I love money. So please, if you are given the opportunity to negotiate your salary confidently. Don't be afraid. You can always ask for feedback and guidance for your own development. And then I'm almost done with my slides. And then we have what we call the gender gap statistics. What is the 50% of global force are women, and we have 60% of the global force to be men. It simply even means that in Africa, these figures are even much lower. So what are we trying to do? We are creating awareness for us to have female representation at the top. And then also when it comes to leadership position, women hold about 31% senior positions, and then the men hold about 69 senior management positions globally. It still simply means that as women, we need to work. Even though the number seems to be fairly okay, but a lot needs to be done for us to actually bridge the gap between male and female at senior management position. And then also the gender pay gap. I am an advocate for equal pay for equal work. If I'm doing a job, as a mechanical engineer, as a gas cuddler, and my male counterpart is doing the same job, please pay us equally. Do not say because I'm a woman, you're going to pay me less. No, I'm doing the same job as my male counterpart. Therefore, I expect to have equal pay as my male counterpart. Do not make room to have gender pay priority. If you're paying a female doing the same job as a male, please pay them equal pay for their roles. And don't say because she's a woman, let me pay her less. The number is actually not bad. Women are being paid 17% less than our male counterparts. And we are fighting for equal pay for equal job done. Now, when we say the future of diversity in Africa's energy, what do we mean? What are we doing to predict the next decade? How diversity could shape the energy landscape in Africa? It means that we need to create more awareness to be able to predict what the next decade will be. If we say that we want to educate girls to understand STEM, we have a program called Catch Them Young, whereby we start training kids from primary school through their secondary school to actually develop interest in STEM programs. We can actually focus on saying, you know what, the next decade, we want to educate women in STEM. And this will help shape the energy landscape in Africa. And then also the role of emerging technologies will also help in promoting diversity. We have the data science now, which is helping women in this oil and gas industry. So you don't have to actually sit down and crack your numbers. We have data science, but the help of science can actually do this. And lastly, the potential for Africa to lead globally in diversity and inclusion in the energy sector is very high. If we commit to develop our women in the next decade, we'll be able to actually improve the potential of women in diversity globally. And in conclusion, I'm going to say that embracing diversity in Africa's sector is not just a goal, but a tool for sustainable development. And therefore, overcoming challenges and actively promoting inclusion can actually unlock new opportunities. Trust me, this is something I thought I could not do. But when I focused and I set my mind to it, I am doing it, and I'm doing it fearlessly. And I'm doing this seamlessly. I could go into a meeting full of men and I can stand boldly in front of 120, 100, 200 men and speak confidently. It wasn't easy, but I had to develop myself, all because an opportunity was given to me, and I'm trying to use that opportunity for the betterment of my fellow women as well. And also, as Africa continues to develop its energy infrastructure, a commitment to diversity is a key to building a more equitable and prosperous future. We as Africans need to focus on energy infrastructure. That's the only way we can lift ourselves from this energy poverty, because the continent is full of natural resources. The continent is blessed with natural resources, and therefore we should not ignore infrastructure. That plays a key role in developing the continent of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, with your permission and your time listening to me, this is where I draw the curtain to my presentation, and I'll be open for questions, comments, and content. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Give it up for Mr. Rubabat. Thank you so much for that great presentation and informative presentation on diversity and inclusion. So this is the time where we get those questions coming in. If there is something that they've probably not also touched on, we have a diversity and inclusion specialist in our midst, so she'll be still able to answer most of your questions. So anyone, you can just raise your hand. I can see Priscilla. Priscilla, you can unmute and speak. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Oseni, for the presentation. It has been wonderful. I have a few questions, and one is going to come from one point you mentioned earlier about energy poverty. I've always been wondering what skills and competencies do you believe are critical for professionals in the energy industry to have in order to address the challenges of energy poverty? And how can our industries in Africa, the local industries, help to develop these specific skills that are needed? So that's my first question. And then my
Sorry, please, can
second
you start your
question
first question again? I missed the first question. I'm sorry.
okay. Yes, my first question is what specific skills and competencies do we need as professionals in the energy industry in order to address the challenge of energy poverty? And what are some of the ways the industry in Africa can do to develop these skills among the local force in Africa? That's my first question. My second question is coming from the diversity side, and it is what are the most effective ways that we can measure the impact of diversity and inclusion initiatives within the energy industry in Africa? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think what we need to do as a continent is to make sure that the infrastructure is built wherever the resources is being exploited or it's being explored. So for instance, like new countries like Uganda now, I think the last time I followed the news was Uganda and Tanzania. They're trying to build a pipeline from Tanzania to Uganda, and it's being built by Total. What we need to ensure as a country of Uganda or Tanzania is that there has to be infrastructure. Say that again. There has to be infrastructure that will actually contribute to the development of those countries. It shouldn't just be that a pipeline will be constructed Tanzania to Uganda and then nothing stays in the country. Some of the resources that is being produced, that is being explored, some should remain in the country for us to be able to move ourselves from this energy poverty. Like a typical example I gave in Ghana, we were able to build a gas processing plant so that we'll reduce flaring. And now that we are even talking about energy, cleaner energy and energy sustainability, we have to ensure that these things are being done. When it comes to diversity, a lot of awareness needs to be created. And that is what we are doing now. And then also as women, we need to also find ways to empower ourselves. Let's read if we have the opportunity. Let's look for new ways of equipping ourselves. If you're doing STEM-related courses, trust me, the opportunity is there waiting for you. If you're not doing STEM-related courses, there's still an opportunity there for you in the oil and gas industry. We just need to be able to build ourselves and look at what the opportunities are and work towards it. For the biases in the oil and gas industry, it is there. But as diversity champions, we are only trying to create awareness for these biases to be reduced to its minimum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla, I don't know if that has been answered.
One more, one of which skills do we need as the specific skills that we need to address the challenges?
Okay, so the skills you need to address the challenges you face in oil and gas industries are many. It depends on the challenges you're facing. So let's say if you're facing challenges of you being pushed back, you need to find a way of identifying someone who you believe can actually promote diversity. We have what we call the he for she. We have certain men in those areas, in those places where they are actually natural advocates for women. You need to be able to identify those people and express yourself to them and say, look, I'm facing those challenges. But of course, you need to know what you're doing. And don't be afraid to speak. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Where you think you need help and you think there's a challenge, there could be somebody who could help you. You need to go and knock on those doors and speak to them and say, look, I'm facing these challenges. And then they will find ways in which you can address those specific challenges. For instance, like I was told I can't do a particular job because I'm a woman. That wasn't it. Nobody even thought about my capability. Nobody even thought that I went to school for 4 years and I'm working in the same industry, and it just looked straight into my eyes and told me that, oh, you can't do this job. And I was like, excuse me, I can't do this job? How? Like, that's the reason why I went to school. They just told me, yeah, you know what I did? I didn't make friends with that person anymore, even though we still talk. I went to somebody who was willing to even explain to me. So every day I go to the control room and I start asking questions. I hear key terms that they mention. I go online, I read about those key terms. I tend to understand. I go for meetings, I listen attentively. If I have questions, I come ask the people. Then they're like, oh, you really like this job, right? I'm like, yeah, I just want to learn. And they were teaching me gradually. And I was able to build myself by asking questions. Because of the challenges that I faced, I didn't let my challenge pull me down. I said to myself, you know what? What that person said I could not do, I am going to prove to that person that, you know what? I can do this and I can do it better. So don't be discouraged by those negativity. Don't be discouraged by those chauvinistic words that will come out from people. Do not be afraid. When those words come, when it enters your ear, let it go out of this place. Don't let it stay. And then you start feeling bad about yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla, I don't know if you've been answered.
Yeah, I've been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have Hannah's hand up. Anna, you can unmute.
Hello, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Rubabat, for the wonderful presentation. I was actually really excited to be a part of this session because I work in the field currently in my current job. And this topic of diversity and inclusion is a very hot topic when we are working in the field. So there's usually a debate that goes on between men and women, and a lot of perspectives arise from this debate that can be contradicting to what you've just presented to us. So my questions, I have 2 questions. I just want to know your opinion on 2 of the main perspectives that arise on this debate of diversity and inclusion. So the first perspective people have, usually men, is that most spaces right now, almost work environments, are already gender balanced. Like there has been a very intense effort over the years by many companies to try to include women in some of these roles in the oil and gas industry, which are usually male dominated. So right now, most men think that any more efforts to include women from this point are actually attempts to favor us or say, okay, she just got this because she's a woman. She got this because right now the whole diversity thing is putting her in this space, but actually she may not be that competent. That's the first perspective people have. The second perspective that is really contradictory that people have is that the reality of the field and work done in the field is very challenging. Okay, not all of it is hard, but most of it is. It takes a physical and mental toll on the body. And for employers, some of them are usually of the opinion that, okay, in a situation where I have to hire someone who will be able to do this very difficult work for a 12-hour shift, why would I choose a woman over a man? Okay, I know, you know, a more diverse space is better, like for the company and everything, but it just doesn't make business sense for me to hire someone who may not be able to handle the demands of this job. Okay, there are jobs right now in the industry which don't like have a lot of physical work, but a good number of them do. So that's the second perspective I wanted to ask for your opinion about. Yeah, those are the 2 perspectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna, for the question. Okay, so the first one where we say that let's give women opportunity. If you look at my presentation, I said that we are given an opportunity not just because of our gender. We are given an opportunity not because I'm a woman. We are asking that give us an opportunity because we deserve to be on the table. Look, the point we are raising, so basically there is always this misconception that, oh, let's hire a female because of the whole female thing. No, we are saying, and we keep emphasizing that as far as you're going to employ a woman, make sure you are employing a woman who is competent, a woman who is educated, a woman who qualifies. Do not employ a woman simply because she's a woman. We are asking that women should be employed because they are capable. Women should be employed because they are qualified. That is what we are asking for. And just try and let them understand that we are not fighting to be the head of the house at home. We are fighting for equality at work. And therefore, I will say that the gap between women and man, it's only of recent that we are beginning to create awareness about the gender disparity in the oil and gas industry. It used to be a thing that you have more you have more male in this industry. And then we push the women to do banking, we push the women to do home economics. It is of recent, in the last decade, that efforts have been put in place to actually encourage more women to do STEM programs so that we can actually see women leading in boardrooms. It was a thing of the past. Now that we're getting there, let's nobody say in their mind and say that, oh, we employ women, oh, she got the job because she's a woman. No. And that is why we say that as women ourselves, if we are given an opportunity to do the job, let's try and leave a positive footprint by doing the job excellently. Let's try and do the job with so much power, with so much grace, and not because you're a woman. Let's do the job with your expertise, with your capability. The fact that you're a woman should not give you a green light to have the job. You have the job because you're a woman, because you're capable, because you're educated, because you're qualified. That's what we're saying. And then the other question has to do with the fact that, what was the question again? I think I missed that. But the point is, as women, we are given the role, and don't let even those men, we need to find
Rubabat, sorry to interrupt. Maybe I can just repeat the question again.
Yeah.
The last one, right?
Right.
So the last one was I was just requesting your perspective on this popular opinion that, okay, we want more women in oil and gas, right?
I think I got
but
the
the
question
reality is that, oh, you remembered, okay.
Yeah, now I remember now. And then, okay, so the question is, oh, you want more women in the industry, so why should I hire a woman? Do I think the woman can work up to 12 hours? And who says women cannot work 12 hours? We have female engineers. That is why they were in school. That is why we are asking for that equal opportunity. We have certain situations whereby there are two engineers. Let's say, for example, two mechanical engineers who were all trained in the same class. They all came out in flying colors. And then it's time for them to send these people to the rig. And you say, because she's a woman, put her in the office. Don't take her to the rig. That's not what we're asking for. As far as the woman is qualified, give her that opportunity to go on the rig. Give her that opportunity to work that 12 hours. The fact that she's a woman does not mean that she's a weaker person. So that whole idea of, oh, why should I even employ? Give the woman the opportunity first. And if she fails, then you have the right to say, you know what, maybe I should reconsider my thinking. But we're asking, give us the opportunity to actually go and work for that 12 hours. And that is why we are putting this awareness that as women, if you're given the opportunity, please leave a positive footprint and do the job excellently. That's what we're asking. If that woman is not given an opportunity to actually go and work for 12 hours, wherever they're sending the woman to beat the rig, how then do you come to conclusion that, oh, because she's a woman, I'm not going to send her to the rig? Why should I waste my time hiring a female or a woman? That is where we come in and we are asking for that equal opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Hannah, have you been answered?
Yes, Alicia, I've been answered.
All right. Okay, so I have 3 questions myself.
Okay.
The first one is a bit technical. It's about the gas processing dilemma in Uganda, and I'm not quite sure I have the right to share this because this is like an internal project that we're still really looking at the PAU. However, that's Petroleum Authority of Uganda. However, I will engage you further because you're
All
in
right.
that industry,
Right.
just to support on how we can move forward on the current challenge internally.
That's
The
fair.
second one is on we know that diversity and inclusion is currently centered around women, because I feel like that's where the hot topic kind of settles. Yeah, but we also know that it encompasses persons with disability, age, religion, affiliation, culture. So can you speak more on the age aspect? Because I've also noticed as a young professional, um, I've worked for 5 to 6 years now in the industry, but you also quite notice that at the entry level, it's quite hard to break that glass ceiling to, especially I'm speaking this for the young graduates. It's hard
Right.
to break that glass ceiling with just your degree, however good your CGPA is and everything. It's quite hard to enter for most, both ladies and actually gentlemen, because now this is an aspect of age. It's not really gender. So
Okay.
how, like in Africa here, because most of these IOCs, of course, they want their first priority is expertise, which is understandable, experience, things like, what projects have you worked on that are similar, and you realize that these young people have
No
the
experience.
enthusiasm, they have the grades, they are willing to learn, they are teachable, they are trainable, but they lack the experience. So we are having a challenge there in Africa, I believe, and I don't
Okay.
know from perspective what you can say about that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So should I take the first? Let me take the first question. The second question rather. So
Yeah.
when it comes to young professionals, we're actually referring to people between the ages of 21 and 35. And this actually speaks to people who are just finished graduating from the university or polytechnics, and they're looking for opportunities in the oil and gas industry. So as Africans, or as Uganda, which is now a new baby on the block in the oil and gas industry, you need to actually have a concerted effort in letting these companies to catch people from the universities. Let's say, for instance, they need to give opportunities for people to have internship programs. They need to create job, what's it called? There's a word we call it in Ghana, job awareness program. These programs actually will help develop these younger ones coming out of the universities to know what to expect. So it has to be a concerted effort from the government. It has to be a policy directive to say, you know what, you need to employ a certain quota from these fresh graduates. So what we do in Ghana is, most companies in Ghana, what they do is, before the university actually, before they finish their 4-year or 5-year program, they actually go to these schools and actually go to the engineering departments. It's down to STEM. There's more emphasis on people who study STEM programs. So if you study science, technical, engineering, mathematics, there's more emphasis on you. So you see companies like Schlumberger, Albertine, Talo, Ghana Gas, GNPC going to schools, trying to get the best out of people who are actually studying these STEM courses and see how they can actually help them transition into this oil and gas space. I don't know how big the oil and gas industry in Uganda is, but I believe it's still a new industry. But what I see is there has to be an effort from the ministry. It has to be an effort from the companies to say, you know what, let's try and help the younger ones. Let's train them. Let's recruit them. And then, of course, you're going to be training people who are qualified. So the point here is qualified students, either be it male or female, is what we are looking for. So you need to actually be proactive in these areas. So that's what we do. Like I said, in Ghana, we have a program called Catch Them Young. So we know people we want to start grooming from their basic school to their senior high school to their university degrees. We try to guide them. So this has to be a concerted effort. Like I said, if we can have a decade program and say, you know what, we want to train 200 engineers between now, 2024 and 2034, it can be done. That means you're going to be having 3 sets of engineers coming out of school. That means you're building their capacity in that way. Then for us to have people in the social sciences need kind of what's it called, efforts in getting them jobs. Because the oil and gas industry there's priority given to STEM students. So once you are a STEM student, you'll be given an opportunity to serve in an oil and gas company or even any company that needs the services of an engineer or even a STEM student. So therefore, I'm going to say in conclusion that we need to create that avenue. We need to be proactive in this and ensuring that students who have graduated in STEM courses should be given an opportunity, should be trained actually, because if you don't train them, how then do they know what they're going to do in the industry? Nobody studied, everybody works in oil and gas, didn't come to oil and gas with what they studied in school. But like I said, what you studied in school will give you the first opportunity to work in this oil and gas industry. And your contacts, your connects will give you a higher paying job. So as Uganda is coming up in this industry, you need to actually have programs, to actually have ways to recruit people, to train them. If you don't train them as they're coming out of the school, for them to be ready for the industry which is coming up in Uganda, then you need to go back to the drawing board and see how you can mesh these two together by training the younger ones who are coming, especially the young professionals, to be able to handle and understand what is coming. And even you can even do exchange programs. You can have industry partnering with universities to see how they can bridge the gap between educational and industry practice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I think what I really pick from this, from what you've mentioned, is catch them young. In Uganda already, we have a few programs actually that the government is pushing through the PAU as well. First on local content, that's number one. Also on pushing through policy, the IOCs to carry out trainings and capacity building for students. Let's say like in the region where the oil is, the Albertine region, we have a program of capacity building for students right from senior 4 for as long as they can qualify for the scholarships. So a few of these things here and there are actually being done, which is a step in the right direction. But I think we need, like you've said, we need to push more on that, because then when you look at the number of young people being churned out every year as graduate versus the ones who are actually getting the training, there's a bit of a disparity. So I think that's now where we need to close that gap and try to train as many fresh graduates that come out of these universities.
Well, let me ask a question. Before you go, do you have a course called Petroleum Engineering in Uganda?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so what we also need to understand is that it is easy to train people who studied, let's say, mechanical, chemical, process engineering, electrical, civil engineering. This 5 class of engineers are easier to train to become a petroleum engineer. Because if any of these 4, electrical, mechanical, civil, process engineer, or chemical, if they don't get jobs in oil and gas industry, they can still find job elsewhere. So let's try and promote people to do mechanical, chemical, electrical, process, and process engineering than them doing petroleum engineering. Because if you don't find job in this petroleum industry, you can equally do something else. You can do something in the mining industry. A mechanical engineer can be trained to be a petroleum engineer. A process engineer can be trained to be a petroleum engineer. Same for chemical and electrical engineers. These are the group of engineers who are needed day in, day out in every industry, not just oil and gas industry. So we need to actually see a way of putting these students in the right direction so that the fewer students we have in petroleum engineering can still have the opportunity. Because trust me, it is easier to train a mechanical engineer over a petroleum engineering, because petroleum engineering is just restricted, but a mechanical engineer cuts across. So it's easier for me to train a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, a chemical engineer than a petroleum engineer. So when we are encouraging students to do engineering courses, let them go for the traditional engineering courses like chemical, electrical, civil, process engineering, rather than doing petroleum engineering. Because if you don't find job in petroleum industry, you can equally work in a mining industry, in a manufacturing industry, and what have you. I hope that's clear and that makes sense.
Yeah, that's totally true. I agree. The last question is from me is with this diversity and inclusion, I have also noticed now we are back at the workplace. I've noticed that many companies, yes, it's in their policies, and you see that they're trying to look to portray a certain well, what can I call it? Like, they want to portray that, they're doing everything they can to be inclusive, especially on the aspect of like gender inclusivity. So that to me, it feels like, for instance, the international oil companies are just trying to tick off a box, but yet at the heart of it, there's as if like a secret keeping of some playing cards from the table, like training, upskilling, exposure, and you also mentioned pay gaps. So like we are saying that, yes, we are trying to do the 50-50, 50%, 50% women at strategic level, 50% women at top management. However, like if you go deeper, like to now the entry levels or middle, like let's say the middle senior levels, we still have a gap. We still have a gap, especially on exposure, like the trainings. Yes, the ladies will be there, they would have the jobs, but when it comes to training opportunities, upskilling, when it comes to issues of pay gaps, we still have these issues, and you have actually alluded to the same. So maybe in your perspective, how can this be, how can we close that gap?
So basically, what I'm going to say with regards to your question is, how do we close the gap in terms of capacity building? The more we create awareness of these capacities, the better for us. The awareness will not stop now. We have to actually continue the awareness program. And like I said, we actually do have some champions who are actually male, who are actually men. In certain industries, certain companies, it's actually the men who are actually pushing the women to do better at their careers. We have those men there. So what we need to do is to identify some of the he for she heroes. We call them the he for she champion, whereby they are the men who actually push the women to reach greater heights in their careers. You need to identify those key people and push and speak and seek for guidance, seek for support in order for you to be able to grow and develop your capacity. And don't forget, I told you about the boys club. Don't forget to knock on the door. They have this, you see, you have this group of men in certain companies talking and all that. Go and knock at their door and say, please teach me. I want to understand. And trust me, some will tell you no. But when they tell you no, it doesn't mean that you should look down yourself. Somebody will say yes. Somebody will say, oh, don't worry, I'll teach you. So we need to actually find a way of networking with these people. We need to find a way of actually, you know what? We don't just want to break the ceiling. We want to shatter the ceiling. You know, let's shatter the ceiling. Let's come in. Let's try and work with this boys club for them to be able to help us push this agenda. Don't forget, we can't do this agenda alone as women. We need these men to support us because we're competing with the same men at work. And therefore, we don't need to be seen against each other. We need to work and collaborate with this male who have more experience than us. Even though we are catching up, we need to share those experiences with them and say, you know what, guide us, show us the way. How do we become better in what we do? For example, I'm the first female vice chairperson of a union, of my company union. It's not easy being a female vice chair for a union in an organization where you have hundreds of men. But you know what? I couldn't have done this on my own. It's because I had the he for she champions who were behind me and said, everybody, you can do this. They were the ones who supported me. Of course, I had some strong women who also had my support. Like one of my very good friends at work was campaigning for me while she was heavily pregnant, you know? And she's like, no, it just shows that when people are committed to do something with you and they show interest, ask them to support. Those who show interest, identify them and then work with them. That way, you will be able to, you will not be pushed back, you will be seen at the front. And also, do not be afraid to speak. We are saying that speak with grace, speak respectfully, and speak to the issues and not base the issues on gender basis only. You're speaking to facts, you're speaking to capabilities, you're speaking to experience, you're speaking to qualifications, and you're speaking because you know you deserve a seat at the table, not you being at the back. Even if you go for meeting and they ask you to pray, pray very well. If you know how to do one particular thing as a woman, make sure you do it and you do it with all your heart. One day, somebody will identify you and say, oh, this person is good. I believe we should do more for that person. Thank you.
Great. I agree. Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the team? Yes, from Gideon. Gideon, you can unmute. Actually, it would be nice to hear a guy's perspective also on this issue, especially on the gender, on the gender issue. Yes.
Yes, a very good evening, and thank you very much, Rubabat. I hope I've mentioned the name very well for
Yes,
taking us through this wonderful presentation. I think it has been very, very insightful, and these are some of the things that, as I think it was Hannah who rightly mentioned, they have become hot topics in the industry. So perhaps my question is basically asking you about what is the role of us the men. So you mentioned something about he for she, and we want to see what are some of the things that us men we can do. Number one, to support women, but also as you're doing that, speak to the issue of equity. We've been diversity and inclusion, and in between there, equity as well, because I think equality is giving everyone the same, like the same baseline, but equity is adjusting the baseline to be able to accommodate some of the issues. Say, for instance, when we talk about maternity leave, for example, if someone has an appraisal coming up and then they have maybe a maternity leave, should the appraisal take into account only what they have worked, or maybe that person should be penalized maybe because they're not available for some important training, during their leave? So let's speak also to the issue of equity as well. Thank you very much. I submit.
Thank you very much, Gideon. I think that was a very wonderful, and that was a very good contribution. So when we talk about the he for she champions, what we are saying is that men are behind women to develop their careers. So maybe in your industry or in your company, maybe you can actually, maybe there are certain programs which are tailored for women and they need some support of the men. We are asking you to please provide your guidance, provide your support, provide your knowledge in helping them develop their careers. So for instance, if you have maybe new recruits, you can even have orientations for them. You can even have trainings for them. You can even develop some kind of training for those people who haven't had any experience in oil and gas industry. Maybe because you are more educated or you've spent more time and you have new people coming in, you can actually develop ways to actually encourage these people to do better in their area. And with regards to maternity leave, nobody should be penalized because she's pregnant. Nobody should penalize a pregnant woman of no fault of hers, that because she's a woman, you need to account of what the person has done. The fact that somebody is pregnant should not be exempted from training. It can only be exempted from training if that training is going to cause danger to the pregnancy, to the life of the pregnant woman. Anything that will cause danger to the human being should be looked at first. But if it's a training should not be a problem to a pregnant woman. Even if the woman is on maternity leave and you go for the training, in Ghana Gas, we have what we call training the trainer, whereby if people are sent, for instance, abroad to go for a training or to go learn a new skill, when they come back to the company, our HR has a policy whereby whatever they have learned, they are obligated to write a report. They are also obligated to teach the people who have not had the opportunity to go for those training what they have been taught abroad. So you need to also have what we call training the trainer. So if a pregnant woman is out of the office for 4 months, because in Ghana, the maternity leave is 16 weeks, which is something we are happy for. So when somebody is not available, you can still keep those materials for them so that when they come back, you can still meet them so they can catch up. So for instance, some of the things you can actually do is if people are away, you try and see how you can actually balance what they have missed. Programs that you can put in place so that they don't feel lost. Maybe when they're coming back, you can even do a refresher course for them. You can even do orientation for them. So these are the things we can do as male counterparts, as he for she champion, in bringing these people, these women, up to speed, because it's not fault of ours that I have a biological clock and I have to be at home for 16 weeks to be able to nurse a baby that I've carried for 9 months. And don't forget, as a woman, if a woman delivers a newborn, it takes a minimum of 6 months for the body organs to go back to its natural state. So we actually need these men to help us, to be our champions, to encourage us, most importantly, because this also comes with postpartum depression that people don't even know. So we need the men to actually support us, to guide and show us the way, and let them be our support. So that when we come back and when we transition back to work, we don't feel left out. And when we come to you and we ask for help, please guide us and help us wherever you think we are lacking. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. That's very, very insightful. So these are some of the programs we hope to implement back in Uganda. And thank you for the very good ideas for this. Over to you.
I see. Okay, I see Anthony. Please unmute.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rubabat, for your presentation. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I don't have power back here. One of the energy issues that we are trying to address with the industry in the long term. But first of all, thank you for making time to have this conversation with us. I want to speak to two things that you raised. One is the aspect of being competent at what you do and doing it well. I think that from from the man's perspective and having been in positions where I've been able to call out on different individuals, male and female, to step up for different responsibilities, I find that to be a very crucial tool. And for the ladies who are on the call, it is one of those areas that you cannot compromise. Because just as Rubabat mentioned, you're creating the status quo for those who are coming after you. And when you're given the opportunity to lead or to undertake certain work in certain spaces, you really need to do it excellently. So I am totally with you on that, Rubabat. But I also want to encourage the ladies to be confident and not step back. You know, sometimes you're called into spaces to take on certain roles and certain responsibilities, and sometimes you feel overwhelmed. But by the time someone has called you out, you need to take that first step and know that, you know, by the time someone has called me out here, there is something they're seeing, and there is something that I'm going to learn along this journey. So from a man's perspective, when you were sharing on how can we help in your previous remarks, I just want to react to the ladies on the call that it is crucial to know that you're confident and you step up. Feel when you're called on, step up. Don't be timid. Don't stay in the background, and walk the journey. And you just don't know where it will go from there and on. But that's what I wanted to re-echo. Thank you very much, Rubabat, and the SP Uganda team for organizing this. Perfect.
Thank you very much, Kato. I think that was very insightful. Those are very, very important. We need to be confident, and we should not be afraid to fail. Do not be afraid to fail. As a matter of fact, even if you fail, get up and then do your best. Failure doesn't mean that you should give up. If you fail, it just tells you that, you know what, you need to work harder. So please do not be afraid to fail. Failure is part of life, and you will be fine afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there's any other person who has a question, comments, clarifications, additions before we can call it a night. Okay, I think. Okay, I think we don't have any other questions. So once again, I would really, really like to appreciate you, Ms. Oseni. Thank you for this very informative presentation and webinar, and thank you for allowing to actually share this with us, with the Ugandan section. I would like to also hand over then to Gideon, our chair, to pass on a vote of thanks before we can close this. Gideon, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anita, and a very huge thank you to Rubabat for, first of all, honoring and accepting our invitation to come and give us this webinar. So as you may well be aware that our energy industry is still in the budding stage, and we're still trying to pick up, right, and emulate and follow international best practices. So one of the key issues has really been diversity and inclusion, especially within the workspaces, even within, as you said, and very rightfully so, just the selection of courses, right? So at every level in the human resource chain, we need a lot of diversity and inclusion. And the role doesn't fall on only the ladies; it also falls on the men as well. That's very, very an important lesson that I've learned today. I didn't know about he for she, and this is something that would be very, very exciting for us to start and try to ensure that and to encourage really everyone to encourage our ladies. And as we speak of diversity as well, we speak of any other groups, maybe the disabled or any other people that have an interest in STEM, to come and take up these roles with confidence and with courage. So thank you very much, Rubabat. This has been wonderful, and just giving you 1,000 thank yous. I would also like to honor as well some of the members of the SPE Uganda section that have worked behind the scenes to make this possible, starting with Anita, who is our programs chair. I think I can see Hannah, who is our webmaster. I see Emanuela Kaduchu, who is serving with the board. I see Priscilla Nalubega. Thank you all very, very much. I see Chris Park and everyone that has been part of this. Thank you for doing the work behind the scenes to make this this webinar and this training and this learning a success. And I also want to recognize the presence of our very own director, Kato, who just asked a question before. Thank you very much as well for coming in. And as you can see, the room is full of young professionals. It's full of our senior professionals. And these lessons, I think, are going to be taken home at every level. I wouldn't want to take much more of your time. However, I would like to conclude this session. However, we're going to conclude this session with a virtual photograph. You know, so at will, feel free to turn on your cameras, give a smile so that we can take this virtual group photo for, you know, just to show that you are there and you learned about diversity. That's very important. Okay, so let's do this in a few. And thank you all that have been there. Thank you very much. If you're on the call, feel free to turn on your video and we conclude this. Also, before we take the photo, a reminder to those that are, a reminder to those that have not yet registered for SPE membership, okay, to please do whatever it takes to become a member. I've seen also some international members. I've seen Kalapin from Maputo section, Mozambique. Thank you very much for coming as well and being a part of this. So we're just sending out a reminder to those that are not yet members of the SPE in whatever section or chapter around the world that you're from that have been part of this. And with that, please just give me 1 second before I tell you to smile. And then we take the photo. All right, so I am ready on my side. Yes, let us take this photograph. I am ready on my side. Please give me your best shot. And yes, we are done and dusted. Thank you very much all, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you. No more words from me. Have a good night, and thank you for participating.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rubabat. Bye. And
Bye.
yes, hope we meet up sometime.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm not seeing him.
All right.